This is Lori McIntosh, and I am in the Rotary Club of Auburn in California, and I'm with a fellow member, Cris Vaughn. And this video is just to show people why we're in this club and see if you are interested in learning more about it.
So, great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, Cris, for joining me today. We're actually at the Elk Lodge in Auburn, where we meet every Tuesday, and we're in a secret room that's quiet. So, Cris, I think you've been a Rotarian for a really long time. Is that right?
I first became a Rotarian in 1992. So yes. That's kind of a while.
That's a long time. How did that happen? What in 1992? What made you just decide to take the plunge?
I had worked for the state of California. Then I worked in a private practice in Sacramento, and then I spent almost 3 years in Tahoe City, up at the lake, and enjoyed that.
Not a bad place to be.
It's okay. you can suffer through it most of the time, right?
Right.
Then when I came back to Auburn, I wanted to get more involved in the community, and as it turned out, we first lived in Nevada County. And so I joined the 49er Rotary Club in Grass Valley, and I just wanted to meet more people, learn more about the community, and that was the way that I chose to do it.
Nice. And then when you got more involved in the community and in the club, were there things within the club that you gravitated towards?
They did a lot of community service things. They did a lot of fun things in the community at the time. I still think they have a duck race where they dump 1,000 or 1,500 rubber ducks that you have in the bathtub in the creek there, and then of course the winner is the first duck that gets across the finish line. So that was fun. And then I started working more in Auburn and decided to join Auburn Club.
Okay. And I think you've been a member a couple of years. You might have joined like right after me or right before me.
Actually, I was a member for 4 or 5 years in the 90s.
Okay.
Of our club.
All right.
And then again changed jobs. I worked in the county council's office in Auburn for the county of Placer, and then got recruited into a private law firm, and they were in Roseville and wanted me to be in the local community, so we relocated to Rockland and joined a club down there.
And you've been everywhere.
Well, that's only the start of the trail. But so yeah, and it was really funny because it ended up that they had a succession, like all clubs do, of the next president and the following president, and at least one or maybe two in that succession left the club, and so I ended up being club president for the first time only a few years after joining that club. So it got got involved really quickly at higher levels. Yeah.
So I feel like when you're president of Rotary, it's a part-time job. Is that right?
It really takes hours per week, sure. Mm-hmm. And because you want to do a good job, and you've got committees, and you've got avenues of service, and you've got budgets. So yeah, there's some things that take some time, and everybody who becomes a Rotary president really wants to do a good job, so they have to commit the time to do that.
Yeah. Do you think you'll be president again in this club?
I hope not. No, I'm just kidding. I've been a president 3 times. So, I mean, it's an interesting job. It's a demanding job, especially a club of this size.
Yes.
And a club that's this active. And that's part of the thing that I like about this club. It's the largest club that I've been in. It's a little larger than when I was in the 90s, maybe 5 or 10 members. But we do so many things. I mean, just in my current avenue of service as the community service director, we do things that I spend time every week on trying to make sure that we're doing all the things we need to do just in community service.
Right. And as a community service director, how many people do you have helping you?
I have a community service committee of 6 people. We frequently and easily and readily involve others as time comes, because most Rotarians are very open to helping. Mm-hmm. And so I have a 6-member committee, and I work a lot with youth services as well that kind of relate to each other, community service and youth services. So there's 2 or 3 people there as well.
Okay. So I know one of them that you're very involved with, which I love to do dinners for, is the Gathering Inn. And there's two, one in Roseville and one in Auburn, which is pretty close to here. And can you tell me some things that you've done, like the beds, for example? Talk a bit about what that entailed.
Sure. So I first started working with Gathering In when I was in the Rockland Club, and the Roseville base of operation um, provides support to people, but then they also house them overnight at different churches or different community group
Oh, let me
buildings.
backtrack a little bit.
Yeah,
Let's talk about what the Gathering Inn is. I'll let you do
sure.
it. You have a better example than I do.
So the Gathering In is primarily Placer County area. It provides overnight shelter in some cases. It provides in-house like dormitory care, or I mean opportunities for some. It also has what's called respite care for people who are homeless when they come out of the hospital and aren't ready to really resume their normal life. There's a time period that they can spend there. So they do a lot of good work here. There are two separate facilities.
Mhm.
One is like a dormitory style. It's about 100 people, almost 50-50, maybe slightly more men than women, which is called a high barrier, which means you have to be clean and sober. And then they have a low barrier facility, which are essentially tents, permanent kind of tent structures, where as long as you're not actively using, you can go to that structure. So, and they're both located at the old DeWitt Center, and the the dormitory style is an old minimum security barracks. So they do a lot of really good work. And it's what's so interesting about it to me is that I have a cousin who's now deceased who basically lived on the street, and so he would he was in the Roseville area and would go to their activities or facilities, and then I would occasionally see him when he would come to the individual church that we went to. So it was a direct benefit to members of my family, as well as to a lot of people who, for whatever circumstance, end up in a situation where they need that kind of help.
Yeah. I have to say, when I was kind of like in a lineup of serving food and people would come through, you would never know some of them were homeless. And I would chat with some of them after dinner, and it's just like they're just one paycheck away from, not being homeless, and it just didn't work out for them at that moment
Yeah,
in their life.
I think our society, for whatever reason, there are a lot of people like that
Hmm.
that are a paycheck away from not having shelter, and some people are upset or angry about it. But the thing that I notice a lot, far more in when we serve the food, because we serve in the dormitory kind of setting, are very appreciative. I mean, they go out of their way to say thank you and appreciate it, and so that's a nice reward to get for going out of your way to help somebody else.
Absolutely. And if they aren't super grateful, I feel like it's not for me to take personally. It's just they've got something going on, some mental illness, and maybe I used to be an occupational therapist, and I worked with patients who had schizophrenia,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they're sober, but they have a disease like that extreme, and you just got to go with it. They could just say
Yep.
something really obnoxious or rude to you, and I'm like, they're eating and they're surviving and they're doing
Sure,
okay.
sure. And I think one of the things is too that you never know how they got to where they are,
Right.
whether they were a victim of neglect or abuse or a spouse or a parent or just a random victim for whatever reason.
Right.
And the fact that we can help everybody in that group really is, to me, satisfying,
Yeah.
regardless of how they got there, regardless of whether they're appreciative or not. Those are people that we can help wherever they are in their stage of life. And it's not a big price for us, some time and some effort.
Right.
So,
Just a little time.
yep.
I could talk about the Gathering in probably a whole nother video. I'm gonna have to do that again
Sure.
because I'd love to move on to youth services, and you've
Yep.
been involved with that. Can you give me some examples of what you do?
We have 3 or 4 different things that we do in youth services. One is scholarships, and so there's the dollar amount per year changes slightly, but there's at least a handful of kids that get help with their college expenses through Rotary. We also have RILA, which is stands for Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. Um, I've been around for so long, that's what I used to call it. Now I think they call it Rotary Youth Leadership Achievement, but I still call it awards, which is a week-long camp for juniors and seniors in high school. And they learn leadership skills, they learn confidence, they learn public speaking, they learn teamwork. One of the exercises I think is really cool is they do a ropes course, which has high elements. So you're off of the ground 15, 20 feet. Or you have to go, as a team, 6 or 8, get everybody over the 8 foot or 10 foot high wall. And so they all, without exception, come back changed, and I think better understanding about themselves, and that they are part of a team in life, and that they're part of something that they maybe didn't understand before. So it's a really cool thing. The other thing is REGL, REGL, which is Rotary 8th grade leadership. And they have a weekend camp. It's at the same camp, a different time of the year. And so the Rotary Club of Auburn sends 4-5 students to each of those. And then the older kids, the RILA high school kids, come and do a presentation to the club about their experience. And then there's a public service project that the REGL kids do once they come back. And so they make some benefit typically to their school. And that's one of the expectations that comes out of the camp. So those are the things we do. We also have a music competition for high school students. I'm probably forgetting 2 or 3. Like I said, we do so many things that it's hard for me to remember them all. But it's really important. That's really, all those are really important to me, because I long ago developed a philosophy of plant trees under whose shade you will never sit. All right. And so that's investing in the future. It's investing in people that don't even recognize you're investing in them. And I think that we won't know how that turns out, but we've created the chance for their lives and society to be better because of them, by planting trees under whose shade we'll never sit.
I love it. I'm not involved in youth services. I want to be, but I've heard some of the students, for example, 2 girls came and talked about the ropes class and what they learned. And one of them plans to go to UC Davis and be a veterinarian. I'm super excited for her.
Yeah.
And then the music, those students, that is like a tearjerker, because you could just see the passion in their faces.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, the other one, by the way, the other RILA student had applied to the Coast Guard Academy. So, future leaders is really what those 2 represent. And that's really, although it's not a stated goal, is one, I think, of the likely outcomes of RILA. And so, it's a great program. And, we don't always know how to make our country better, but by investing in the people who are going to be the future leaders is one way to do that.
Yes. And you know what? Even outside of youth services, I got to work with you with 4-H students. And we were interviewing students from age 8 to, I think, 16. And they talked about mostly their favorite animal that they were raising. The 8-year-old had a rabbit, and then they went on to bovine. And it was really amazing to hear you give feedback, and it was super constructive, and you could tell that you listened to everything they said. That's probably why you're a very good attorney, because you have to have good listening skills, right?
It's an important part of it. Yeah.
You drove some of them crazy because you're so good. They're like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that. Oh, yeah. I remember that. Well, what's so interesting about that is I spent 10 years in 4-H myself.
You did? Okay.
With beef cattle. And I showed my own livestock, beef livestock. Was a champion showman for beef. And I showed in some individual fair, or they call them independent, right, for other people in county fair, state fair, stuff like that. And so I had that same benefit we would, for example, go to a field day, and you judge beef, you judge hogs, you judge sheep, and then you have to describe your findings as to first place, second place, third place to an adult. And I'll never forget the first time I did it. I was so nervous, and we're out in the barnyard.
How old were you?
I wasn't driving, so
14.
I know that 12, 13, 14, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was so nervous that I kept looking over the gentleman's head who was the interviewer. They said, "Hey, it's okay. You got to look like that." And he said, "Look, even if you don't, you just look right here, and they won't know any different." So it's a very helpful tip. And so, having benefited from that, that's something I could pass on. And so it was something I had gone through and I had benefited from, and that's why it was so easy for me to try to help them grow in the way they did presentations.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea. Learn a lot about you.
It's all true.
So another question is, since it's 2025 and you've been in Rotary since 92, it's a very long time. I'm assuming that you will not ever quit Rotary. Like, it's in your blood. You are so involved in this club that you're just going to keep going until something happens health-wise or you die, right?
That's my plan. We'll see. I'm hoping that's a long time.
You're a lifer.
I'm hoping that's a long time, right?
Yes,
not just next year.
100? So. Are you going to go until you're 100, 110?
Actually, I calculated it, and it's 2055. So whatever that is remaining, right?
30 years.
No, it's another 30 years, because I want to say that I've had I've seen two centuries turn over, and I've had a birth and 100-year birthday, right? And so that's what I'm looking at, so it's okay. Who knows? None of us know, but it's a fun thing to think about, as opposed to, it's kind of like this. I want to always say, "Oh God, it's morning, it's time to do something," versus, "Oh God, it's morning, it's time to get out of bed." So that's my philosophy. Be doing something that you want to get out of bed and do every day, as opposed to dreading, "Oh, it's another day to get out of bed." So
right, it's
a little extra tip.
Yeah, I like that. Just, it's your attitude too.
That's right.
Sure. Just, and your values. That's right. What can I offer somebody today?
Sure.
And whether they know it or not, I'm going to be helping some way or another.
Yeah. What adventure can I have today? And also, my kind of philosophy is, what can I do today that makes me better than yesterday? Right. So that when I go to bed tonight, I'm better than I was when I went to bed last night.
Yeah.
So.
And as a person that I know is older, you're
wait.
not older than me, older like myself.
Okay,
you have a lot of experience. So I just hope that people take advantage of that and utilize your skills, because we did just hear Dusty Baker speak, and he's 75. And I think he kind of hinted a little bit about ageism. And I've experienced myself, because I'm going on 60, and been rejected for going into pharmaceutical sales again.
Sure.
Which is actually fine. They probably picked up that I didn't want to.
Didn't want to after all, yeah.
Physically, it's a demanding job, sitting in your car all day. But I really don't want that to happen in America. I just feel like there needs to be more respect for people our age. I'm putting myself with you, so don't be offended. But I am disappointed that we're not respected more for everything that you just shared is so valuable.
Well, I think part of it is that when you have people maybe are less active and not as involved, it's easy to discount them. So I've never even thought about ageism, because my contribution is what it is. If that helpful to them, it's fine. If it's not, but I don't think anybody's going to say that I'm not trying to do something. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I'm relating it more internationally, like Asia and Europe. They're very respectful of elders.
Well, I think they have much more tradition there, and so they understand that tradition is important, and that people who maybe have a longer life have experienced more. One of my favorite expressions is, the midget standing on the shoulders of a giant can see farther than a giant. And the idea being that if you benefit from and use the ones that come before you, you don't have to make the same mistakes. I can learn without making the mistake and paying the price by learning from somebody else who has made that mistake. So that's kind of one of my philosophies as well is, I'm okay being the midget standing on the shoulders of giants because I can see farther than a giant. Okay. I'm full of them. Just keep asking.
You got a lot of metaphors.
I'm full
of
them.
I like it. Well, anything else that you want to add before we wrap up about being in Rotary and in this club in particular in our community?
Well, I think that we're just, the club is at least as active, if not more active than when I was in it in the 90s. And so that's great to see. And, we all do it maybe for some sort of personal reason to start, but then I think it takes we get a bigger perspective from helping other people. It's kind of that statement of, when did you join Rotary and when did you become Rotarian? When was that experience that made you realize what Rotary's about and what you can contribute to Rotary? So that's one of the things that I think is nice, that hopefully everybody who joins Rotary has that experience of becoming a Rotarian.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I was in Rotary in Morgan Hill in the Bay Area, and I knew that I would come back to it at some point when I had to move away.
Yep.
And here I am.
Happy you're here. Delighted you're here.
Well, thanks, Cris. Thanks for your time. We're going to have to talk again.
I know how to talk good.
Yes, you do.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.